creation isn't done in time. Creation isn't done in the same way that we do things. If we do things on the material world, it means cause, creation. Something started, something was then created, and therefore eventually that thing will destroy. It doesn't work like that in reality. So when we look at a microphone or whatever's in front of us directly, hands up if it looks like it was always there. Hands up if the computer right now in front of you, you don't remember it just coming into existence, right? You don't have a memory of the thing in front of you just boop, well, wasn't there and then boop, it was there. It's like it was always there, right? And even if you turn your head right now and then you come back into vision, there's the experience as though it was always there and then you just turned and looked at it, right? The sense, we're not looking at the objects here. We want to pick up on this very subtle layer of experience, which is the sense that it was always there, right? The sense that it was always there. I could turn away and it's still there, and I just turn away and I look at it and it was always there, ness of it, right? Ness meaning the presence of. So whenever I use ness at the end of it, I'm saying the fact it was always there, ness. The presence of the fact it was always there is what I'm saying, you see? That presence of the fact it was always there is literally our expectation of reality to appear. Now, our expectation of reality appearing is not an individual thing. I, Saja, don't expect reality to be there. My expectation of reality is the same expectation of reality that you have. What does it mean to expect? Usually we think of the word expect as I'm expecting dinner to come through the door at 7 p.m. because I've ordered it on Uber Eats. I expect tomorrow will be a sunny day because the weather says it will be, or whatever, right? We usually think of expecting as I know something's going to happen and there's a probability that it will. We expect it, we assume it. This expecting energy isn't just the energy that assumes what's going to happen tomorrow or what's going to happen in 10 minutes. It's actually the same energy that is manifesting everything right now. That energy of expectation is our, you could say, from the point of view of the mind, it's our connection to the field of potentiality. We are connected to the field of pure potentiality. We are the field of pure potentiality. And what it looks like, the reason all experience just is there, right? Why it seems like the tree is behind me or the tree is behind Darius when he's not looking, isn't because it's actually there. It's because the thing that is there is the field of pure potentiality. And we are aware of that potential. So when we go to look at it, oh, I've just created it. It's just manifest into experience from the field. So it's almost like everything is invisible and empty until we look at it. It is manifest the minute we bring our attention to it. So the world looks like static, right? When I say static, static in the sense of stationary, still, there. The there-ness of the world doesn't come from the objects. It comes from the field. The field is there. The infinite field of being is there. And when we look at that field from an individual point of view, it looks like whatever we assume it to be, namely life in this realm, namely the computer, the microphone, the everything that's taking place. Is everyone following?
Yeah.
Let me know if there's any form of any possible confusion with what I'm saying, even if you just want to play devil's advocate just for the sake of deepening the understanding.
I'll try. What about the tree falling in the woods thing? If no one hears it, does it actually fall in the woods or make a sound,
Absolutely.
rather?
Yes.
Um, and science, I guess, I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Yeah. Well, this is the answer to
Quantum.
that, you know? So, no, the tree doesn't make a sound because the tree's not in the forest anyway. There's no forest. You see, the forest would appear the minute we go there with our attention. You see, it's created the minute we go there. It's perpetually manifest and manifest. So in quantum physics, this is what they call the difference between the wave and the particle. Every atom every atom has quarks, and the quarks are a combination of the wave and the thing. They've never even seen them. You can't even look at them. They're not even things. Isn't this amazing? You can't actually see it. I always thought, well, scientists must have seen it. Otherwise, why would they believe it, right? Surely science is about seeing and seeing and knowing, not assuming and believing. That's what we call religion. But no, science looks at things and goes, well, somehow it's there. No idea how. And they created like a diagram of like a quark being like a little ball, a particle like a little ball, and a wave obviously like a little wave. And they're basically saying that, you know, it's a solid thing and it does exist and then it doesn't exist. That is actually true, but it just never becomes a solid thing. That's the only difference. Never actually becomes the table. The appearance of what we think is the table is our mind instantly, say if we were to touch the table, instantly creating the experience of a sensation. But a sensation isn't a table, you see? Sensation is sensation. Sensation is only an experience that takes place inside our mind.
Isn't there the potential for creation? Doesn't depend on me seeing it. So there is within the infinite the potential for certain forms. Humans didn't invent the idea of tree. It has a legitimate existence in its own right.
Well, the
But
fields
it is
have,
not in that form until witnessed to be in that form.
well, it's more accurate to say that God has existence in its own right and shapes itself into the form of a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So God has infinite expressions, like infinite colors, metaphorically speaking. And one of those colors is called tree. And one of those colors is also called Christine, Saja, you know? So God has, yeah, infinite expressions. So just like white light is invisible, but then when it shines on something, it manifests as color. And inside the white light, inside, where even is the inside of white light, right? But metaphorically speaking, within white light, there are a rainbow of different colors. So in the same way, when consciousness limits itself, it creates the colors of life, the colors of experience. And what do we call those colors?
Interesting idea that kind of creation is useless until held or witnessed. It's like God could have created everything, but if me as everything didn't notice, then there was no point in creating it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I am that witnesses and that is.
Exactly. But the beautiful thing to see is that you're absolutely right. We usually discredit the world as being something that just comes after, like as if there's a story of creation, and at the start there was the absolute, and then after the absolute was created, form was created in order to experience itself. It's not like that. It is both simultaneously the absolute and the form. But we usually, because it's easier to talk about it, even when I'm explaining it now, it's almost as if I'm talking about it as if first come the absolute, as if, you know, first comes the Big Bang, then all the planets. No, it's almost like, to metaphorically tie it to a common analogy, imagine like the Big Bang talking about creation. There was nothing, then there was a Big Bang, and then, you know, everything came after that. It's almost like the everything that came after that, the Big Bang and the thing before it, all exist simultaneously at once. Relatively speaking, we're not really going towards the Big Bang. That stuff, I don't really believe that stuff, but but it's basically the absolute experience, mind, and an individual point of view all exist simultaneously at once. Literally, all there is what currently is, and what currently is can be experienced from different points of view, not different points of view like sitting on this chair, sitting on the sofa, sitting in that angle. I mean different levels of perception. So think of different, when I say different points of view, I can mean it in two ways. I can mean different points of view as in different minds, different actual perspectives, like Saja's a point of view, Gary's a point of view, you see. But in this sense right now, I mean it in the sense of levels of perception. I'll give you an example. I can look at the wave or I can look at the water. In both instances, I'm looking at the same thing, right? But I can either look at it from the point of view of seeing a wave, I can look at it as point of view of seeing the ocean, or I can look at it as a point of view of seeing the water. Or I can look at it at the point of view of the reflection in the water. You see, in both cases, I'm looking at the same exact thing, but there are 4 ways of seeing that thing, 4 ways of looking at that thing, 4 different perspectives. This perfectly aligns. It was Steve who posted yesterday a quote from the Atma Darshan from Atmananda Krishna Menon. The seer and the seen. If one looks through the gross organ eye, he means if one speaks on the level of perception of physicality, gross forms alone appear. So objects, things that we can see, right? The same relation exists between other gross organs and their objects. So then he means if I hear through my ears, the level of perception of ears, hearing sounds, I will hear sounds. If I look through my eyes, I see sights. If I taste with my tongue, I taste tastes, right? Leaving the physical organs, if one looks through the subtle organ called mind, subtle forms appear. Subtle forms. What does he mean by subtle forms? Thoughts, perceptions. Not the sight, but the seeing. You see, not the thing we hear, not the duck quack, but the hearing. Right? Not the table, but the sensation. You see, that's another level of perception.
I'm also reading that as being able to see other dimensional realities where you pick them up. You can't, it's the world that you can't see, but you can perceive. When you're not focusing on 3D, you can perceive other realities. So I was looking at it from that point of view as well.
Yes, if you take it all the way, yeah. When I say all the way, if you take it, yes, that's absolutely right.
And that kind of comes first, I think, before, yeah.
It doesn't matter so much as long as we have a basic model. We just need a basic model for what the ways of seeing. For instance, some people can cover their eyes and still see what's in front of them, but it's still a form of it's still a form of subtle seeing. You see what I mean? Looking through the attributeless pure consciousness, one sees consciousness only and nothing else. So what does this mean? You've all heard me take us through the investigations where we literally go through this process of first we hear the object, then we just experience perception, which is just the hearingness, not the object that we hear, the hearing, the experience of hearing itself. Then we ask the question, what is it that cannot be taken away from hearing, the experience of hearing? What is essential to hearing? What without would hearing not exist? Someone would like to answer that?
Awareness.
Awareness, exactly. If there was no awareness, you wouldn't have the experience of hearing, right? So this is our direct experience of seeing that we're not actually, first we have to realize I'm not actually hearing the duck quack. I'm just hearing. And then we see I'm not even hearing, I am awarenessing. I'm experiencing awareness in the form of a perception that I call hearing. You see? So awareness goes from a completely clean slate, we call it pure consciousness, the ocean of consciousness, the unmanifest, which is God. Then it vibrates within itself, creating something we call hearing. And then hearing makes us, when we clothe that hearing with thought, we say, I hear a sound of the duck. Of the duck is another thought perception. We're basically layering loads of different thoughts and perceptions into one finalized idea, one finalized experience that we call listening to music or listening to the birds, you see? But really it's hearing, which is a vibration of consciousness in a particular form. So all we're actually experiencing is consciousness. We are experiencing pure consciousness in the same way. This is literally identical to, instead of seeing the wave, which is like the sound, instead of seeing the water or the ocean, which is like the perception, we're looking at water, which is pure consciousness. So just like we can see wave, ocean, water, so too do we hear sound, hearing, consciousness. So these are, do you see now, these are levels of perception. We've gone from the most surface level, the way everyone perceives, which is I hear sounds. We've gone from the second level, which is I experience hearing itself, pure hearing, or pure seeing, whichever one sense we go with. And then the attributeless perspective, which is I just experience pure consciousness. You can see this right now. If you hear the sound of my click, can everyone hear that? You don't hear a click, you're just aware. You can't hear it. Well, you can hear my voice. So even if you're just listening to my voice, you don't hear my voice because the only thing you know of my voice is awareness. You only know about it. The only thing you can claim that is present is awareness. If you didn't have awareness, my voice wouldn't appear to you because you wouldn't be able to hear, because you need to be aware in order to hear something, right? Awareness is always fundamental. Now, we usually believe awareness is fundamental so that we can experience the external world. No, awareness is fundamental because without it, the external world wouldn't even be there at all, right? So moving forward, this experience proves that the objective world will always appear in perfect tune with the stand taken up by the subject. You see? This experience proves that the objective world, whatever we see, will just appear in whatever stance we take. If I take the stance of that's a wave, I'll see the wave. If I take the stance of that's the water, I'll see the water. It just depends on the stance we take as we move through the world. So if I take the stance of that's the wind blowing, I will experience the wind blowing. If I take the stance of there is just perception, I will just experience perceiving. If I take the stance of all perception is inherently consciousness, I experience as consciousness. So in other words, if you take the stance, in order for that, you have to take the stance as consciousness. You can't take the stance as I perceive consciousness, because you would also be a perception perceived. And that is obviously made of consciousness. So he says, therefore, it is not the objective world which presents obstacles to one's spiritual progress, but the false stand one has taken up. So like I was saying earlier, we need to see that it's not complicated, it's complex, depending on the stance one has taken up. You see? And if one has a hard time giving up a stance, well, then, that's when we get the complexities, you see? So it is this simple. Look at the next line. If this is given up, what by this he means if we give up the stance of the more superficial surface level levels of perception, spiritual enlightenment follows. Simple as that. To give up the stand, courage and one-pointed attention and heart's devotion are absolutely necessary. So do you see why I always talk about devotion and interest? Why do I talk about interest? Interest is the PG word I give to absolute one-hearted devotion to God. You see? It's the surface level word I use just to not scare people off too much. But it literally means, why does he say courage? Why do you need courage for that? Someone tell me why you need courage.
It's terrifying.
It's absolutely terrifying. From the point of view of the mind,
Yeah.
you're giving up your whole individual, localized identity. However, what will happen is, so you could see that the terrifyingness, notice it's not, it's a mental complexity. You see? It's just simple, it's simply a mental complexity. You see, it's not a big deal, in other words, right? We want to get this sense of any challenge I have is not a big deal. It's not a big problem, right? We want to get out of this problem. Oh my God, this is complicated. Oh my God, I've got to do what now and do this now and what? We need, like, this is another complexity, is our complication, a complication, the belief in complicatedness. Nothing is complicated. It's only seen as complicated if there's a mental complexity yet to be seen. You see, honestly, this is massive. Just this understanding. If this whole session today is anything's taken away from it, it is that. Why? Because it's going to sharpen your intellect even more. It's going to sharpen your capacity for a simpler, easier, more efficient life. Even if by virtue that the understanding doesn't literally do something objectively, by consequence, when there is mental complexities, it's going to be seen and easier to resolve, you see? Because you're actually removing one massive block on this path, which is seeing it as complicated. It's not complicated. If it's not complicated, then, well, what's the opposite of it's not complicated? If something's not complicated, what do we usually call it?
Simple.
Simple and easy. Yeah, exactly. Easy. It's easy stuff, right?